So we're in Hill Heights, which is an area in Etobicoke, close to Etobicoke. It's an area that I lived in for most of my youth. My parents are from Chile, and after the military coup of 1973, they were exiled to Canada. And they arrived in Toronto. They were put up in a hotel for a couple of days, and then they were brought here and given apartments. This actually became known as the Chilean neighborhood. Like all the first Chileans who started arriving in Toronto, they came here. The men would get together and play soccer, and all the women would, have picnics, and the kids would play around, and it just became this really communal thing. And you knew that in every building there was a Chilean family. My parents, they moved out of this area when I was 16. And I think it was at a point where they had finally decided that they were staying.
Yeah.
They were making their home here in Canada. For the first, 8 years, my parents thought that they were always going to go back to Chile. So
Right.
we actually lived with suitcases ready to go in our closets. And there was always the belief that the dictatorship would fall and we would go back. And when the dictatorship did fall in 1989, which was when I was, about 15, 16. I think that was a turning point for my parents and for a lot of families. The kids that, their children had made lives here. We spoke English more than we spoke Spanish. All of our friends were Canadian.
Yeah.
So it became this sort of like, we can't go back because we'd be doing to our children what was done to us. Taking them out of what is secure and what they know and putting them in an unknown environment. We lived a life of two identities. We were told at home that we could only speak Spanish. We ate Chilean food. We listened to Chilean music. All of my parents' friends were Chilean. And then we would go to school and we would have to speak English and try to integrate into that life. So it was always a struggle, but I think it's really formed who I am, and I know that it's formed a lot of who the other Chilean kids are, the second generation of Chileans. We've been formed by that duality. The main reason that I'm producing this play is because I think that it's an important story to tell. Not just for the Chilean community and not just for the Latin American community, but for all Canadians, because it talks about really fundamental issues about being from someplace else and trying to make a life here. The second reason, which is a very personal reason, is because it's the story of my life. It's the story of my parents. And it just, it talks about how they struggled to make a life for me and my sisters. I think in a way I want to make this play an homage to them and to what I know they went through, or what I think I know they went through. There are so few theater productions in Toronto, in Canada, that actually talk about that, talk about what it means to be an immigrant in Canada. And I think this play is really important for that reason, because it's talking about Canadians, It's talking about what it means to be us. And I think because there are so many different cultures in this city, in this country, if we start to tell our stories and come together in a dark theater and have that communal experience, we can get closer to knowing what it is to be Canadian at the core, And Alameda Theater Company was started to be able to add a new voice into the Canadian theater landscape.